So as the UPA hits the 3-year mark, how many marks would it get on its report card? We're going to be asking a range of different voices on the program today. And we're starting, of course, with Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Industry is especially despondent at the absence of reforms and at what's being called the policy paralysis in the government today. Joining me now is well-known industrialist and businessman, industry leader really, as well as the president of the CII, Adi Godrej. Adi Godrej, when you look at the big picture today, the rupee has fallen to a historic low. You've got Morgan Stanley now saying that the growth forecast is further reduced to 6.3. You've had Standard & Poor's in the past downgrading the India outlook. How do you assess the state of the country and the mood of the nation today?
No, unfortunately, the reform program has stagnated. We need to concentrate on both reforms and governance to ensure that there is a revival in growth. The low growth rate of the economy will create many other hardships. As you mentioned, it has led to a devaluation of the rupee, and many other problems will follow. So it's extremely important that the government gets back on the reform path, especially since the global economy is not doing too well. If you look at the last time the global economy had tanked, that was in 2008, the UPA government reacted very positively. We brought in fiscal stimuli, we brought in monetary stimuli, and the economy recovered in 2009 and 10 and 11. And I wish we could do the same. Unfortunately, the scandals that we saw about a year ago and the anti-corruption movement has created a hibernation which we must get out of. And I do hope that now that the parliamentary session is over, we can see some reform announcements in the very near future.
Adi Godrej, we've had a statement today from America's ambassador to India, Nancy Powell, talking about how certain decisions taken by this government have cast a shadow over what she calls the investment climate, over investor confidence. How do you believe the world is looking at India today?
I think the perception of India has become a little negative because some of the steps we've taken, particularly the retrospective amendments in our taxation legislation has created a negative perception. If you look at the lower growth rates, the rupee depreciation, all of them have created a negative perception, and we need to act to overcome these negative perceptions. There are many things we can do in a short period of time that could overcome these negative perceptions. And once the perception improves, the reality will follow.
Adi, there's a perception today that the bureaucracy is among those institutions in government that is just not willing to sign on a file anymore, that in a way the scandals and the scams that you talk about, this has created an environment of fear. Everybody's worried about getting into trouble. And in a sense, the paralysis is ironic because everybody thought that the UPA II minus the left would proceed much more speedily with reforms. There's no left party anymore, but the resistance seems to be coming from within. It's often the Congress party versus the government, and the reforms just seem stalled. Do you see that? Do you see as the problem essentially lying within?
Well, yes. I think everybody expected UPA II to do better than UPA I because, as you say, the left was not supporting the UPA II. But unfortunately, I think the scandals and the anti-corruption movement has sort of set reforms back, and I don't think they should have. I think there should have been a reform program despite some of the problems the government faced, and I do hope we can see that in the last 2 years of the UPA II government.
If I were to ask you what you would call the biggest achievement of the UPA government, its second tenure, and its biggest failure, what would your answer be?
Well, I wouldn't like to look at one big achievement or one big failure. I think generally the reform process has slowed down. That's a negative. And governance improvements have not been as rapid as they should have been. We should improve governance, take quick decisions, take action where due. For example, the goods and services tax, one of the most important reforms we could have, has been stagnating for the last 3 years. So somehow government should work with the opposition, with the states, to get things moving, get things done. I'm disappointed that that's been slow in the coming.
What's the one word you would use to describe the mood of the nation today?
Well, the nation is a little despondent, but if you look at, say, consumer sentiment, for example, is very strong. FMCG companies are doing well. Unfortunately, the part of the economy which depends on government action has slowed down. And I do hope we can reverse that very soon.
As a captain of industry, you're used to annually rating the budget, but if you had to rate the government out of 100, what score would you give them, Adi Godrej?
Well, that's a difficult call because you have to look at the circumstances also. But I would say something like 60 out of 100.
And on your report card, Adi Godrej, that would be an average score?
Yes, I would say that's average.
Do you have the NDTV Profit app? All the markets, all the news and your own homemade, ready-made portfolio available there for you.
We will right now answer what you should sell, what you should buy when markets are down.
Download at ndtvprofit.com/apps. Get the best app from the channel you trust.